What's up guys, Axis here and I'm back in Octane. We're doing another tutorial and today I'm going to be showing you how to do something that I did for the Landscape Essentials trailer, which is this head with some gold going on it. You should see it on screen now. Very aesthetic, very cool. And we're going to be using Xparticle 3.5 for this tutorial. I don't know if it works in versions prior, but obviously it should work in versions which come after this. And yeah, obviously Landscape Essentials, I'm going to be using Landscape Essentials to kind of split up the particles fluid, and you can check that out in the top right hand corner. If you don't know what it is by now, it's 50 height maps, normal maps and texture maps. They're all in 8K. You should see some nice stuff on screen along with the stuff that we're going to be creating today. And yeah, top right hand corner, first link in the description. Let's get into this. So I'm going to be using a model from 3D Scans, which is a great resource. I'm going to be using this one here. This dashing gentleman here is going to be cut up into different sections. So just download that. It's in a strange format called STL. You can just drag that in though. Luckily Cinema accepts it. And we're not going to be wanting this. It's off with his head, and we're going to be cutting off the top of his head as well. So we have a flat surface to displace. I do have another tutorial which shows you how to actually UV map a head and put a displacement on it, which is way more like efficient, because you can put like an Octane displacement on it, or you know, whatever render engine displacement, and use a material essentially instead of using a deformer. So let's get started. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to grab a cube and I'm going to go into one of the other views. Maybe I could just get rid of these for the minute, just so we have the full screen. Easier for you guys to see. And I'm going to scale this down. I'm going to want to leave quite a lot of his forehead, just because when you displace it, it kind of distorts his eyes as well. So I want to cut his neck at a sort of like 35-degree angle. Sounds really messed up, but whatever. Make it editable, the cube. Go into edge selection, press 0 to get our rectangle selection, and select this side. Press W to go to world coordinates. Drag this up, and I'm going to drag the other side down. Just mess around with this until you get the angle you want. And there we go. Right, so this part is going to take a little while, so I'm going to skip this part after I've done it. Essentially, we're just going to get a boolean, put our photo sculpture in here, and then go into our boolean type, and we're going to make this intersect, which is the third option, and put your cube as a child of the boolean, and I'll see you in a little bit. Alright, so that didn't take as long as I expected it to, so there's our model looking nice. And if we go and press NF, you'll be able to see all the lines. You can do this now if you want. You can do create single object, which will optimize it, which save us a step in the future, and we can hide new edges, which should get rid of the lines on top of here. Let's just see if that works. Looking fine. So that saved us a bit of time, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this one object by right clicking and doing select children, and right click again and do connect objects and delete. Hopefully this should work, but again I'll probably skip this. Oh, never mind. So yeah, it's going quite well so far. Got our object cut up, it's looking good. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start subdividing the top of the head, and I'm also going to add a small bevel around the edge, just because I find that makes the displacement less glitchy. So I'm going to go and grab the select outline selection, and it should select your edge selection immediately. Hopefully I can... It's not letting me do it. It's been a bit laggy. Hopefully it'll let me select this though. Maybe we'll have to do a loop selection, see if that works. The reason I didn't want to do this is because it makes it slightly glitchy, but we can do that. So that was UL for loop selection. And now we've got the top of the model selected. Press MS for bevel, and I'm going to leave the subdivisions at 0, and I'm going to put the offset to 0.01. Very, very small bevel, but it makes a difference. So you can't even see it unless you're really, really in close, and you can see it there. So that's that done, and now I'm going to select with the polygon selection the top of our model. Bit of a glitchy top of the head there, but hopefully it should be fine. I'm going to go and do KJ for plane selection. Bear in mind that this is different in different versions of Cinema, so I think in R18 they changed the knife tool up quite a bit. But I'm going to go to world mode, and I'm going to go XY and restrict to selection, so it will only cut the top of the head, which is what we selected. I'm going to put the number of cuts to 50, and I'm going to leave the spacing on 10 because we can just do US to subdivide it after this. So let's click. Will be a bit laggy, but shouldn't be too bad. Now let's do X. I think it's XZ. I might be wrong. Yeah, it's it's YZ. Sorry. So try and get as centered as you can. And there we go. We've got that. And I'll just click US a couple times, or 3 times. I did quite a lot more than this, but just because I don't want to wait ages, I'm going to leave it like this. And also you can do set selection, so even if you deselect this somehow, you can always come back and reselect it and subdivide it even more and ruin your computer. So that's the base of the model there. We've got everything set up now. What we can do is we can now go and grab a displacement or a displacer and hold shift while you're doing this, and it'll put it as a child of the boolean. I probably should have saved this before I did the cut and stuff, so you should have just copied the boolean before you made editable, but I forgot to say that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a standard Cinema 4D material, and I'm going to go into my single screen so we can get our materials up, and I'm going to go and just get our displacement here. Doesn't matter what's inside any of this. Alright, I'm going to go and get Landscape Essentials up. Oops, wrong drive. Okay, right, so what's in here? Let's go with, I think I used 17 originally, but I want to maybe try some other ones. I don't want to experiment too much just in case I end up spending too much time on this. I think we'll go with 15 just because nice swirls in it. Those are probably my favorite landscapes in these in this pack, sorry. So now we've done that, make sure you've dragged your shader onto the displacer, go into your displacer, and we're actually going to change this to planar, change this to Y+, go to shading, change this to diffuse, displacement, and this will allow you to drag your tag into texture tag. And there we've got our object displace. It's looking a little glitchy, but hopefully we should be able to fix this. I'm going to go and make this cubic, which is a really nice thing that you can do in this way of displacing things. I'm also going to increase the height to 50, maybe a bit too much. And another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this onto box on the fall off, and I'm going to make the fall off 100% initially, and we'll see if that works. So very subtle displacement now. I don't know if I want to displace it that much though, because it will lead to things like this. I did get some really cool results doing this, so if anybody wants to mess around with it, it's definitely something that's got some opportunities there. If you mess around with it, get some cool stuff for Instagram. I'm gonna put this on 50 again, maybe a bit less, 30. So the reason I had it on 100% fall off was just so it didn't glitch out and have such a harsh stop. which it does now. So maybe we go a bit higher on the fall off. But basically we just want a nice rough surface to kind of throw our particles onto that will kind of make it flow nicely out of it. There was one that I did want to try out, so maybe we try which one? I think it was this one. This one I think would work quite well, but we'll see. Just drag that in and it should change. It's looking a bit weird currently, but hopefully we can work our magic and get it to work. Yeah, you see, I want it to like kind of fall out of here. Obviously there's a lot of glitches around here because of the, let's see, like on these edges here. So your best bet for this is to actually use a really high copy knife. So if you use a really high number of cuts and a really low spacing, it's probably the best way to do it, but it takes ages to do, so just because it's how laggy it is. So we might want to try adding another subdivision there. And also what we can do is we can increase the Phong angle, which should smooth out these a bit more. So we've got an interesting area to kind of throw our liquid onto. It's not as displaced as I would like it to be, but it's good. It will do for this tutorial. So what we can do now is we can go and grab a XP emitter. Yeah, there we go. And I'm going to go and put this as a circle. Go into your model mode and rotate this. If you hold shift while doing this, it will go in increments instead of by 0.1. Very slow to emit, but it is working. So I just raised it above here, and I'm going to be adding a few things. We're going to be adding an XP domain, which you can find in your X particles and dynamics. Yep. And we can line this up by going into our front view, which is F4. Scale this down, bearing in mind when it hits either any of these sides, it will bounce. So we could have our floor down here, or what I did actually was I had a displacement. I had another displacement on the ground in the original one, which I added another XP collider to. But just to save some time, I'm going to be just using a domain as a collider. And I'm going to turn the viscosity up. Basically, viscosity makes particles sort of stick together very simply. Or the explanation is very simple. And I'm going to be putting the voxels down to 5. Basically, the lower the voxels are, the kind of more detailed the simulation is. Essentially. I'm going to be hiding the displacer just so I have a bit more of a clean place to work. As you can see, we're not getting any movement currently, and I'm going to add an XP gravity. So if we go to, I think it's modifiers. I always do Shift C for this, so I don't actually know where any of this stuff is. I'm guessing it'll be in motion. Yeah. And it's moving extremely slowly. And it's probably because of the voxel size, but it's increasing. And there we go. It's going right through our object, but it's landing in sort of the right place. I want it to land slightly back, because I think it will kind of wash down into this, onto his head a bit better if I do it that way. I'm also going to turn the emission up, and another reason it might be slow at the start is because we're so close to the edge. Don't know if that's a factor, but we can find out if I press play. Yes, it is. Okay, so now I'm going to go into our emitter and turn this to 10K. I think I had this at something ridiculous, so be ready for some quite long cache times or preparation times for your scene. And what was I going to add? Oh yeah, a collider. So I'm going to actually create a lower mesh, a lower quality mesh of our displacer. The problem with this is that if we want to change the displacement, change where it is based, you know, in the tag settings, we won't be able to do that. We'll have to create this again, but it's way better to preview. So if I do select children and connect objects and delete, grab a Polygon Reduction, and we'll do the exact same again. In fact, let's just select them and right click, connect and delete. And then we should have our, I think by default it's 90% reduction, so we're gonna have our really, in comparison, low quality mesh, but it's still fine for this simulation. So if I go and get a XP collider, which we can find in the XParticles tags, collider, I'm just gonna do any. And you can mess around with these settings, but I don't think I bothered. Basically, it will just change how it reacts when it hits the surface. It's just like a rigid body or a collider in cinema. So we've got something now, and it's washing down here nicely. It's kind of taking a nice little path, but I don't want it to be kind of going over here. Might be difficult to actually fix this, but I can try by just messing around with the position of the emitter. That looks like it sort of fixed it, but it's still kind of washing around and not being quite good. And we want to see what it looks like when it goes over the edge of here. I think that we don't have enough particles in the scene, but you can obviously bump this way up at the ends. And as you can see, it's taking a nice little path down this man's nose, and it will eventually reach the ground. But I'm going to go and mess around with the Skinner settings, because you guys can completely just tweak around with this and get something cool looking. Because it's going to take way too long if I'm just tweaking with this and trying to make it look as perfect as I can. So let's go into our XP tab up here and go to Skinner. I'm going to drag my XParticles emitter in here, source, and that's not quite what we're looking for. It's cool. It's not quite what we're looking for though. I want to see if I have my settings up. I do. Okay, so what I used fluid. This will make the Skinner way thinner. Skinner thinner. And I'm going to drag this out so we can see a bit more. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn down the polygon size to 1. Now I'm going to set all these settings before I turn it on, because I know what settings I used. It might not look appropriate in this scene, but we'll just have to see. Basically, the lower this goes, the longer it will take to load, and the higher quality it will look. So bear that in mind. Render polygon size, that's basically what it's going to look like in a render. So you could have this on 5 here, which it will display a quality of 5 polygons or polygon centimeters. But in the final render, it will be 1 centimeter. So yeah. And also you can turn it on and click on render only, and it will only render the Skinner when you export to the picture viewer, which is nice. What else did I do? I think I left everything else on default, and then I went to the smoothing section and I turned this on. I put it way up to 15, but I feel like that'll be way too much, so let's go like 4. Turn this on and we'll see how long this takes to load. Hopefully not too long. There we go. We got this really nice smooth liquid here. Maybe a bit too blobby, but we can also mess around with I think it's radius. On some of these surfaces it doesn't work, but it actually works on fluid, luckily. So I don't have to go scouting for stuff, but that's sort of what we're going for here. I think I'd like a thicker fluid though, because I don't want it to look like, like water or something. I want to kind of make it look like mercury or something like that. Or liquid gold. 3 or 4 should be fine, I think. And maybe 15 was good for smoothing. I'll show you what smoothing does, because it seems to be quite responsive, which I was worried about. Let's do 8. As you can see, it just kind of, I'm trying to think of a comparison. It's kind of like a metaball. It just kind of smooths the transition between all the different particles. Maybe go 15, what I had in the actual scene. See what that looks like. Can't tell if it updated, but whatever. And from this distance, it actually doesn't look that good, so you might either want to add a subdivision surface or by adding a lower polygon size. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I textured this up, and it was pretty simple. So I'm going to bring in a plane, and I'm going to export this. Cinema doesn't normally, I mean Octane doesn't really like working with a lot of polygons, so we'll see how this works. I'll just turn our render on. I'm using a test version of Octane, so you know, might crash, might not crash, who knows. There we go, we've got this exported and it's looking alright, it's not looking bad. Obviously what we could do is we could hide our collider. It's looking pretty low quality at the moment because we've got the collider body showing instead of the final one. There we go, it looks a bit more luscious now, a bit more nice. And I'm just going to bring in a couple lights into this scene. I'm going to turn them way down to like 15, something quite low. I just want a really simple lighting setup. You know, we want to have like a rim light. Drag this all the way over here. Maybe turn this up to like 40 now. I want to see how many GPUs I'm using. Dragging their light in here, and I'm going to put one sort of like 40 degrees looking at it. Maybe that's a bit too... We'll see when we turn it down, but I think it might be a bit too much. Yeah. Let's go put this on the side again. Just kind of have our rim lighting set up, I think. I think that's probably the best idea for this, just so it shows all the different crevices in our little, like, I don't know, it looks like a dessert or something. Top of his head. 30. And you can also turn up the power, make it a bit of a nice little blue light here. I want to see what making like a dark light setup would look like. It's no bad, no bad. I want to try and rotate this this displacement because I think it would look cool if it came from a different angle, but I don't want to waste time either, so I think I'm just going to leave it. But I am going to wait for this to simulate a bit further. Just turn off the skinner while you're doing this and it'll go a bit faster. I just want to see the particles hit the ground. I think that'll look nice. Alright, I'll let that simulate for a little bit. It's not perfect, but it's alright. I don't really like the look of the fluid, but it's not terrible. Maybe upgrade, or not upgrade, up the radius. It looks a bit funny now. Anyway, hopefully when we get some textures on it, it'll look fine. Let's go and grab just open LiveDB gold, because they do some good golds in your metal section. So let's check. I think I want to go with like a champagne gold. It's probably my favorite. Put that onto Skinner. And there we go. Maybe the roughness is a bit low. I don't know. Put this to GGX if you're on the new version. Looks like coffee there. Alright. Now I'm gonna actually put a texture on top of the head. I'm gonna split this up. I think I'm gonna put the landscape texture on the head. It will just depend how it looks, because originally I used the landscape texture, but it was with a different landscape, so we'll see. Let's put it up here. Should get something. And I kind of like the way that it like transitions as well, so let's go and get an image texture. I could be using the node editor, but who has time? I'm gonna go and drag this texture. See, we might have some issues here, but I'm fingers crossed we don't. I'm gonna copy all this just by holding. Well, actually, I don't need to. It's just cubic. I thought that I changed like the projection angle and the offset and stuff like that, but I didn't. So this should be fine. And it's not actually appearing right now. Also, I want to change, since it's going to be mirroring a bit. I want to change this to mirror, because I think, did I? No, I didn't. Okay, whatever. I don't think it repeats. But basically, if you have this seamless checked, then you want to turn the wrap to mirror, because that's essentially what it's doing. It's just mirroring the object or the texture on the edges. I think we're gonna have to export this again. Try a refresh, see if that works. I'm just trying to hold off exporting again because I'm worried that it will crash. There we go. It's not looking great at the moment, but I'm actually going to remap these colors by going into our Cinema 4D Octane and Gradient. Alright, we're back now. So I had a crash. Let's go and put the gradient on. And I want to single out the textures, or single out the colors a little better. Be different for each texture, obviously, but let's see what that looks like. Should be able to get something that looks pretty nice up here. Okay, I think I'm going to make this red as well. I mean, I kind of like the black and white thing, but I want to see what it looks like without the Skinner. That's quite nice, but yeah, maybe colors, maybe add some red. I'm just going to add full red for the moment, and then I'm going to make some parts darker. Actually, maybe just having it black will look fine. Or yeah, let's try this. Just kind of alternate between the colors. So it looks quite luscious, very lush. And another way to spice this up is to actually add a dirt node in here. I'm gonna give in and start using the node editor, just so it's not it's a bit better for you guys to see what's going on. I don't want to make it that big. Right, so where's dirt? I think it's this section, right? Yeah. Drag this into diffuse so we see what's going on. It's highlighting all the polygons, which I don't want, but I think it's gonna have to be like that. I just want like a really small amount of these to be selected. Like just some edges so I can kind of add like a highlight to it. Yeah. Yeah, something like that. Okay. Now let's go and get, what should we do? Should we mix or multiply? Maybe try just multiplying it, it'll be quicker. If it works out. So I'm going to be multiplying this and then I'm going to throw this into the input. Hopefully we should get some. Don't like it. Oops. Maybe try a mix. Put that there. And I think what I'll do, right, is I'll get a color correction node. Plug our texture in again and then use this as the amount. So now I'll just decrease or increase something and you'll see the difference. Oh, that's cool. It's kind of like a rock face or something. Maybe want to decrease the radius. Oh, or increase. I don't know which way it was. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, so something like that. It's pretty abstract looking. You can make the rest of his face like this. If you want to duplicate this, I'd recommend going in and let's just go into node editor and then select this and make this a mirror. Oh, it already is a mirror, nice. I don't even need that, so just delete this and then bring this in, put this behind our object. And his face is looking pretty funky now. Pretty interesting. I think originally what I did was I made it so that his he had like blood streaks going down. It was pretty artsy looking. So I mean, you could do that too, or think of something else. But obviously, since we have the curvature map, it's kind of adding another level, and it looks like it's made for the face. Like it looks like I went in Substance or something and I actually did some work. But kind of tracing it like that doesn't look too bad. Obviously, I don't think I'd use this for anything, but I mean, it works for the tutorial, so let's just go with that. And what else could we do? Maybe add like a sun. Just add another level of light. Or maybe we just go with the studio light. Who knows? I like that because it kind of adds a bit of like a purpley color to the scene. That's brightened it up there. Alright, so it's kind of like a lava-y texture. It's quite nice. Now what if we turn on the Skinner? We got some gold in the scene. I actually kind of want to go with yellow gold because I think it will stand out way more against the really bright red. Or blue. Download that too, just in case we want to try that. Oh yes, that's what we're going for right there. That is nice. What are they just using, like a flake in here? What is that, a bump? Normal map. Oh, okay. Nice. Okay. So yeah, LiveDB, go and check it out. But yeah, that's essentially the tutorial. That's what I did, but I just put a bit more time into the particles. Just play around with the position of it, maybe add a turbulence in there and put the scale down a bit, so it kind of adds a bit of noise and creates a bit of variation in your fluid. But yeah, that's essentially it. So if you guys enjoyed, remember to leave a like, and if you have any issues, comment down below, and I'll try and help you, or someone else will try and help you, hopefully, if they're nice. And yeah, remember to check out Landscape Essentials if you haven't already. Would be greatly appreciated, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial.